Hi there, my name's Jerry Haigh. I'm a wildlife veterinarian, author and a storyteller, and I live in the city of Saskatoon in the prairies of Canada, in Treaty 6 territory, where stories have been told and listened to since time immemorial. It's the area lived in by the Dene, the Cree, the Nakota, Nakota and Dakota peoples, and the homeland of the Métis. I'm honoured to have been invited to be a part of this 40th anniversary celebration. I've been associated with tales for many years and enjoyed the fun and fascination of stories old and new. I'd like to share with you some stories from this book, Reindeer Reflections, Lessons from an Ancient Culture. It involves part of the story of going up into the mountains of northwestern Mongolia and working with the nomadic reindeer herders, people called the Sartan or the Duka. I'd been invited to go there by a young American woman who'd done some work there, and it involved a long and brutal trip. Of course, Saskatoon, Vancouver, pretty routine. Vancouver, Beijing, exhausting. Then Beijing Airport, something else. Overnight in Beijing, and on to Mongolia's capital city of Ulaanbaatar. Again, we have to overnight, and the last evening we go out for a meal with the young man who's picked me up, and I eat a meal called soyvan. Now, it plants a time bomb because soyvan is mutton cooked in mutton fat. Well, next morning we set off. We climb into an ancient Anatov plane. It's a Russian plane. The canvas seats are kind of like an old skirt. The safety belt has a knot in it, and I can't even clip it shut. So off we go, and an hour or so later we arrive in the little country town of Murun. Again, an overnight, and in the morning I've met a couple of other people on the project, and we get into an ancient rattletrap Jeep-like vehicle with somebody had forgotten to put suspension in, and we drove and drove and drove. And it wasn't on roads, as you can see from this picture, with winding paths sort of chosen by drivers as they felt good. It looks like badly braided hair. About half an hour after we've left, that time bomb goes off. And for the next several hours, I dive out of the vehicle every half hour or so and suffer, leaving DNA on the steppes of Central Asia. After several hours and one more overnight stop, we're still driving. We haven't seen another vehicle at any point, again on those windy, twisted roads, and we suddenly come to a straighter bit of road, and there on the right is a motorcycle and sidecar. There's a gentleman standing by the road, there's a lady sitting next to the motorcycle, and he comes over and talks to our driver, Gullah. And they have a brief chat. Gullah gets out of the vehicle, goes round to the back, removes all the luggage, and guddles around inside a collection in the wheel well of all nuts and bolts and all bits and pieces of metal, and suddenly emerges with a bolt about that long. And they walk over to the motorcycle. They stand there talking for 2 or 3 minutes and moving their hands, can't tell what's going on. And then Gullah steps back. The man hops onto the seat of the motorcycle. His wife climbs into the sidecar. One kick of the starter, and off they go. Who knows where they're going? More driving. We eventually arrive at the administrative center, called a Sum Center in Mongolian, of Saganur. And right there is a beautiful lake with a fantastic view across it of the mountains in the far distance, the Hofskol Mountains. Again, an overnight stop. Now we're off to where we see some horses at a local camp. It's not Sartan folks yet. And there is a typical horse I'm going to be riding. It's not a very large horse, but very powerful, about the size of a pony that I'd ridden. You can't call them ponies, they're horses. A pony that I'd ridden when I was about 9 years old. Now, I'm not an experienced rider. I said to Morgan, the young woman, the American woman, please tell Bayanmunk, the wrangler, that I have a problem. I haven't ridden a horse since I was 9 years old. Well, Morgan turns to Bayanmunk and says something, what sounds like fluent Mongolian. Bayan gives a big grin, and off we go. Bayanmunk sticks with me for a bit. He's probably worried either about me or his horse. I don't know which. And after a while, he goes on ahead, things seem to be okay, and I haven't fallen off. And our translator, on this occasion a young woman called Bindi, drops back to talk to me. And she says, "You know what Morgan said to Bayanmunk?" I said, "No." She said, "Well, what she actually said was, this man feels like he's 9 again when he gets on a horse." Well, we carry on, we come to the first camp, and there's a group of teepee-like structures. They're called yurts. And I'm just standing there by the door, and 4 reindeer walk up to me. I'm standing still. They come to check me out. It's an extraordinary experience to just show how truly domesticated they are. We go on, we go down another slope, and there in front is a big sort of grassy plain with a river running through it, and it's kind of a boggy piece of country, high altitude, but bog. We're walking along on a sort of ridge, and suddenly my horse decides to turn. Don't quite know why, probably my fault, and he gets into the bog. And now he's suddenly up to his hocks and his front knees, as they call them mistakenly, and we're in trouble. That might have been all right, except the saddle started to slip. About halfway round, I realized this was a bad situation. So I piled off. Luckily, my muscle memory from many years of rugby playing, a long time ago, but still there, I threw myself off to one side. I did a faceplant. The horse went on, and the saddle went fully round the equator till it was underneath the horse's belly. It was pretty upset by this time, and it realized what was happening, and it turned round and headed back towards the ridge where the other horses were with the rest of the guys. Morgan again said something as I recovered, stood up. She said something to Bayanmunk and the other guys. Again, it was translated later by Bindi because she said, what Morgan said to these guys was, "You must be careful. This man is a doctor. He's come all the way from Canada and he's 103 years old." Numbers, I guess. We go on. We come to yet another camp. There's a striking example of how very, very tame, heavily domesticated these animals are. Because right there, next to where I'm standing, is a lady milking a reindeer. Now, it's not tied by any tether, it's got a simple halter on it, but the halter doesn't go anywhere, and she's just leaning against its flank, collecting milk in a tin can. Her name is Erdenchimik. And milk is used in cheese making, in other forms of fruit, and importantly in tea. They make the tea in a big round bowl, they put some milk in, and if you're lucky, they don't put salt in it. And that's important, because if it has got salt, you've got a problem. Whatever happens, you must collect the tea in your right hand. It's in a bowl. And you must take a sip. If it's got salt and you can't face it, you gently put it down. Nobody will be offended. But you must take that sip. And you must accept it in your right hand, never your left. You can accept it with both hands, or if it's a heavy object, you can support your right hand with your left. You drink the tea, and that's fine and dandy. Well, we carry on from Erdenchimik's place, her camp, where she's got the family. We go uphill. We're climbing up. We get more or less above the tree line. Just a few straggly tamarack or larch, as they're known over there. It's all that's left. And we go up again, and we're now well above the tree line. We're walking along rocks. There's mountain snow on the tops of the mountains. We come down in towards a valley. And at this point, we get off the horse because the rocks down the slope are anything from basketball size to washing machine size or even VW bug. The horse knows exactly what's happening, but I have to walk very carefully down the slope, and we come to the next camp. There are several reindeer tethered near the yurts. The scene looks as if it's covered by a layer of icing sugar, or as if viewed through a plastic shower curtain. Now, by this time, my wrist is swollen up between my watch strap and my elbow, and I have no idea why. I'd taken some Tylenol, it was quite sore, so much so that I couldn't really hold my mug of tea. It was that sore. I'd taken some Tylenol, as I said, but didn't seem to have helped at all. So we sat down and I managed to struggle to drink my tea, and then I explained to Biamba what was happening, and he said, well, let's go to the next door yurt and see the local shaman. So we go over, and she, Suian is her name, is an old, wrinkled lady, and Biamba tells me she's 103 years old. She's completely blind with heavy cataracts, but she welcomes me and we sit down and we tell her what's happened. After a while, she says, why don't you come over and I'll see what's going on. And she palpates my arm, she runs her hand up and down it. The hand's fine, the upper arm is fine, but she can feel the swelling. After a moment, she reaches behind her, pulls out a great big leaf. It's a big fleshy leaf about that size, and she says, to Biamba, of course, you must heat this up several times during the night on the metal stove and then wrap it round your arm. Well, I can do that rather easily because, of course, in my first aid equipment I have bandages, and this particular one is purple. It's called vet wrap, and it clings to itself, so it doesn't need a safety pin or anything. And by the morning, all is good. I've wrapped it a few times. So we go back over to meet Suvian and thank her for what's going on. I've still got the bandage on. And we sit there and we talk, and I thank her. Then we start to talk about other things, and particularly our families, because it turns out that Suvian, her daughter is also a shaman called Send, and I met her previously, and Suvian's grandson, Send's son, is one of the veterinary technicians who's been on us with the trip, who I'm helping a little bit with some new knowledge. Well, that family structure is very similar to my own, because my wife's a physician, our son is a physician, and I'm the vet. So we have 2 doctors and 1 vet in both of our families. Now, doctor, in that case, is indeed the shaman. She's acquired knowledge from thousands of years of acquisition and learning. And here she is passing knowledge down to her own daughter, indeed. So her traditional medicine is just as effective in this particular case as ours is in Western medicine. It's an extraordinary experience for me, something I doubt I shall forget. And it's great to have shared that and the other stories about our trip into mountains with you guys. Thank you.